what was interesting about that band is that we rehearsed twice a week.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it
That's
was
that's unheard of for like
crazy.
a band of pros that's not through the union. Like to get a group of pros together twice a week for a rehearsal. That's insane.
And it was a work of love because
Yeah.
we obviously didn't get paid a lot, but we ended up doing three records that I'm really proud of. And um, the cool thing about that band is nothing was off the table.
Welcome to episode 137 of the Bass Shed podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. Welcome to all the new listeners of the Bass Shed podcast. Please make sure to hit subscribe wherever you are listening to the podcast to get notified about new episodes that come at you each week. LemurMusic.com, everything you need for the double bass. That's right, and electric bass. They're doing electric basses now. Stop by LemurMusic.com. Shop their inventory of bows, rosins, bass, practice materials, sheet music, you name it. LemurMusic.com. Use the promo code TheBassShed, all one word, for 10% off. All right, folks, I know you've heard me talk about it. The Jerry Jamont 15 Timeless Bass Lines. It's a transcription book that Jerry and I had been working on for a little while. We released it at the NAMM show this past year in January, and it is out. I was actually messing around today trying to get it up on Amazon. Trying to get the print on demand happening on Amazon so that it won't cost everybody a ton to have them shipped to them. Right now you can buy it off the website, thebassshedacademy.org, but shipping's expensive. Shipping is just expensive. So I'm trying to do the Amazon print on demand situation. More details about that coming at you. You can get the ebook or order a hard copy right from thebassshedacademy.org. Some other news that is happening in the Jerry Jamont universe: signature bass, right? Jerry has never had a signature bass, and him and I were talking about this. I'm like, dude, how is that possible? How is that possible? Like, there's never been a Jerry Jamont bass. I think he mentioned that Fender had approached him at one point to get a signature bass. So I'm like, man, we got to do something about this. Contacted some friends of mine, and it's in production. The prototype is in production. They called me, I don't know, a few days ago, earlier this week, I think, to let me know how the prototype's coming along, and what they're working on, and how they're, the details about the bass. This bass is aimed at being a replica of Jerry's main bass. Not that he recorded on, like the bass he plays now, the main bass he plays now. So there's pictures, or I will release some pictures if there's not already. But it's a jazz body. It's a replacement neck. It's not a Fender neck. He did some tweaks to the electronics on it, so it's got a very, very unique electronics situation. And we're replicating all that. So the Jerry Jamont signature bass is gonna be happening. Excited about that, and we're looking to release that late summer, maybe, if all goes as planned. But you know how these things go, right? You know how these things go. You mean one thing, and if I start talking about it, like, oh, it's going to be released by here, it won't be released by then. So the plan is to get the release over the summer, late summer, maybe early fall. That's the projected date. But more info coming at you about the Jerry Jamont signature bass. And make sure to get your copy of Jerry Jamont 15 Timeless Bass Lines from thebassshedacademy.org. There is a link in the show notes. On the episode is electric bassist Steve Billman. Steve Billman is an educator, performer, author. He has designed curriculum for the Los Angeles College of Music. And the curriculum was rhythm studies, right? He's got a strong focus on odd meter playing. That's something that really fascinates me, and just different ways to, polyrhythms and stuff like that. I'm fascinated by it all. So it was great to have Steve on the podcast. It was great to have Steve on the podcast. Steve has performed with Frank Gambale. I'm going to read them right here to make sure I don't forget any of them. He's performed with Frank Gambale, Billy Cobham, Liza Minnelli, Daniel Ho, Alex Acuña, Mike Stearns, so many great musicians. He talks about a couple projects. He spearheaded a band he leads called the Odd Dogs. And kind of what those groups are about and the process of those bands. We talk a lot. We talk about education. We talk about odd meter playing. It was a great time. It was a great time with Steve on the podcast. And here it is. Here's my talk with electric bassist Steve Billman.
How are you, man?
Doing all right. How you doing?
Doing good.
Cool.
Glad to be here, man.
Yeah. What's that? Right off the bat, what's the P bass I see here?
It's a reissue. I think it's a 59.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that with the backwards tuning machines?
You know what? I think it is.
Yeah. Every time I play those, I'm like, oh, right, it's one of those. And,
I never even thought about that, but you're right. Yeah.
Oh, really? It catches me every time.
Well, my brother, it was actually my brother's, and he wasn't using. He's like, "Do you want it?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And so I don't play it that much, but it is a nice instrument. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Man, great to have you on the show. You've been recommended to me several times by different sources as someone I should have on, so I'm glad this worked out.
Well, thanks for having me. I so appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. For the listeners out there, let's do a little kind of getting to know you segment. Are you from Los Angeles originally?
I'm originally from Orange County.
Okay.
I've been up here most of my life now. So I grew up in Orange County, and I left probably, I think I was 18. I left, and I came up to Los Angeles, and I studied music. And then pretty much since then, I've been, other than a few stints, in different places of the country, I've been in LA now. So
okay. What was it? Just the scene that brought you up here? I mean, I don't know what Orange County was like back in the day, but there's not as many opportunities down there now as there are in LA.
Yeah, the scene was mostly up here.
Yeah.
So I just thought, well, this is a good place to connect, and I was doing a lot of gigs up here anyway.
Okay.
Obviously, when I was younger, I was doing a lot in Orange County, and then kind of when I made the trek up here, because I went to Musicians Institute back in 1980.
Okay.
I'm dating myself.
Yeah. But back, I don't know what it's like now, but they had a really strong program.
It was incredible. It was just unbelievably incredible, and it was the first year Jeff Berlin came halfway through the year.
Okay.
So that was an amazing. I'm so glad I went. And anyway, I came up to do that. And since I was up here, I was starting to get into the scene anyway. And then I just started getting connected and started, doing gigs up here. And now occasionally I'll do a gig in Orange County, but I hardly ever back there. So
right. Was bass your first instrument, or were you introduced to music through another instrument?
My dad played piano, so I grew up listening to, and he played my dad called it the long-haired music. So he played a lot of classical music and a lot of fun stuff. So I kind of grew up listening to him playing, and then my brother, I've said this before, but my brother was a huge influence. He played guitar. Okay. So initially when I started into music, I was probably 10 or 11. I picked up guitar. Okay. And what kind of things were you looking to emulate back then at 10 or 11? Like songs on the radio, or were you getting more into some deeper things? Were you getting into jazz back then? Yeah, it wasn't jazz yet. Okay. But I was, and again, I've said this before too, but God bless my brother. Because of my brother, I was listening to some great music. So I was listening like King Crimson. Okay. Progressive rock things. And then some sort of jazzy kind of stuff, but not like straight ahead stuff yet. Right. Okay. But definitely more sophisticated music. I was listening. Okay. I grew up as a young kid. Yeah, that's killer. That's great that you had that.
You taught at Los Angeles College of Music for a long time.
Very long time. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to add. I didn't want to add the very and like
No,
make
no,
it
no.
sound like it was daunting. But yeah, you were there. You were there for a while.
Yeah, it's all good, man. I was
Yeah.
blessed.
Yeah.
So,
When did you leave?
let's see. It would have been 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty,
Um, and you were a part of the rhythm studies class there. Well, like you taught classes, a lot of different topics, and I'd like you to explain those courses you taught. But I know the rhythm studies was a big thing you were involved with over there.
yeah, well, in 2000, I started there in 96 just about when they opened. And I was doing mostly ensemble work. So, they have classes where the students play with professional musicians.
Right.
Doing that initially.
We
And
haven't
then,
talked about it, but I do that over there now,
oh, that's awesome, man.
and I teach the upright
Oh,
class.
that's great. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that, man. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
We
Yeah,
must have just missed each other. Actually, I think I started there about two years ago, so I think
okay.
we just passed each other.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, yeah, so that's kind of how I got in there. And then one by one, I just started teaching classes.
Hmm.
And then, so yeah, so I ended up teaching a lot of stuff there. And I'm so grateful that I also was able to write a lot of curriculum.
Hmm.
And that's kind of where the rhythm study class came out of because I played in Ralph Humphrey's class, this drum class for like 17 years with the
Oh wow.
drummer, long time.
Yeah.
And both of us had a connection because we both had passion, obviously, for odd time music. And so out of that, because Ralph had his rhythm study class, I thought, man, bass players need to know this stuff
Hmm.
because the rhythmic part of these concepts added to the bass would be very unique.
Hmm.
Like most drummers know about polyrhythms. They know, how to do all that stuff, orchestrate that on the drum set. There are a few bass players that know how to do it, but I thought, man, bass players need to know about this.
Yeah.
So I studied, well, I mean, I've been studying odd time stuff my whole life, but I purposely went to somebody who I know named Randy Gloss, who's a percussionist.
Okay.
I think he teaches at Cal Arts still. I think he's the head of the department actually. But so we got into the South Indian counting and the different things, and that really got me excited. That was like, ooh, yeah, that's sort of a missing part. And so what I did is I just spent some time with those concepts, and I just wrote a curriculum that was based off those concepts, but applied it to bass as opposed to like percussion or drums or whatever. So I added grooves, I added notes
Hmm.
to the concepts, and started playing them. And I just noticed that, especially, well, even writing, it affected my writing too. But I like to improvise. That's a big part of what I do is improvisational music.
Hmm.
So I noticed that when I was improvising, these ideas were just starting to come out. These rhythmic ideas that, while I'm playing it, honestly, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, but I had just inputted that information so much that now it was starting to come out, and I really liked it. So Jerry Watts, God bless Jerry Watts, he asked me, he said, "Hey man, do you want to turn this into a class? Do you want to make it a bass rhythm study class?" And I said, "Oh yeah, let's do it." So I had a bunch of stuff written, but it wasn't, formulated totally as a book yet. And so through that, I started putting it together as a book. And that's part of what I would teach in that class. The other part is that we would play all sorts of odd time music. So
Hmm.
we'd play ensembles too. We'd have music to play.
A couple questions about the approach to odd meter playing or the discipline of practicing odd meter. The music of, as you mentioned, South India, like it's always regarded as like a big influence, right? I think anybody who follows fusion music can understand that from players like John McLaughlin and things like that. Uh, what is it specifically about South Indian music and odd meters that isn't found in other cultures, because I know like Greek music is obviously that's a
Yeah.
lot, popular Greek music will be a 9 or 11 or something, which is not common to American pop music. So how does the Indian music differ from other countries over there when it comes to like the sought after place to study the music?
Well, let me tell you first a story about the Greek music. When I was at Berkeley, when I was in Boston, I did a casual, and we were a pop band, and they had a traditional band there that played in between us.
Hmm.
I saw people dancing in 9,
Yeah, yeah,
11, 13.
yeah. No,
It was,
they can
it's like,
own it. Like they crush that stuff.
it was like, are you kidding me? They were actually in sync with the music, and it
Yeah.
just worked. Um, it's for me, it's kind of hard to answer that question in the sense that I don't know that much about Greek music.
That
So,
was just
but
an example. I don't know that
yeah,
much
yeah.
about it either.
But I think what I like about the South Indian way of doing it is that for me it was an easy way to figure out the polyrhythms
Mhm.
and those complicated rhythms because they use syllables
Right.
as opposed to, you know what I mean? And it's based off those syllables. So if I take 16th notes, they would say takadimi
Hmm.
instead of one ienda,
Right.
right? Two ienda, right? And if I wanted to turn those 16th notes into a polyrhythm, all I have to do is go, okay, instead of takadimi, I'll say takite, 3.
Hmm.
And then that will give me 4 over 3, right?
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like this way of sort of getting inside of the polyrhythms with just applying those simple things. And I'm in no way like this Indian,
Yeah, yeah, shaman.
like, but what I love about it is I was able to take the concept and I was able to sort of apply it to what I do, which obviously is going to be more Americanized, more fusion-y kind of approach.
Right.
But I can't tell you how important it was to my development is learning those things.
Um, that's killer. What was I gonna? I had a question in mind. uh, when pursuing it, uh, how do you start? Do you start like, okay, let's take 4/4 and let me see how many time signatures I can just layer on top of these? And like however that works out mathematically, that works out because you're thinking about the syllables. You might not even be thinking about the math.
Right, right.
Right.
I think what I did, and this goes, and I wanted to figure out the name of the book because I wanted to give him credit, and I forgot to write it down. I can't remember it. But there were a couple books that I utilized that were drum books
Hmm.
that were really hard, and what I did is I just practiced those concepts on the bass.
Okay.
I would just first take like whatever it is, if you're going to try to figure out what's 4/3, I
Hmm.
would take that sequence and then I would just play it with either one note or just a dead note
Yeah.
and just get the feel of that polyrhythm. And then what I would do is I would try to be creative. So, okay, let me apply it to a groove. Okay, let me see, maybe slapping. Let me try it with a slap or a pick or my fingers. Maybe I apply it to a scale, right? So my concept is the first and foremost, I need to get it inside my DNA.
Sure.
I need to get it inside of me so that I'm feeling it, right? So that what happens is, like I was saying before, then when I'm playing, this stuff just starts coming out. I
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
no idea what I'm doing in terms of, okay, I'm going to play a group of 7 notes here in one beat. It's like I'm not thinking that way. It just starts to happen because I've inputted it into my DNA, my musical DNA.
Sure.
So I think that's where I started. Sometimes I do sit down and I'll mess with things maybe a little bit more mathematically, but I like it to be more of an organic kind of natural way by first inputting it and then letting the music just flow out of me.
Hmm.
And what I did discover is when I applied it to grooves, and at first I really struggled, like I couldn't pull it off, and it was getting me frustrated.
Like
But
establishing bass lines with a polyrhythm feel.
yeah, to be able to play them, like the
Yeah.
concept was there, but actually to be able to play them, it was like, oh man, this is tricky. Once I started getting it, I found that the groove is deeper than anything I've ever played before.
Mm,
You know, it was like when it locks in, because
yeah.
see, at that point you're not using the click as a babysitter. It's not,
Right.
it's you're playing with it, but you're playing against it if
Sure.
I make sense, right?
A tune that immediately comes to mind when you're talking about this of playing grooves in a polyrhythm is Gary Willis's tune "Bowlegged," which
You
is a
know,
blues in three, but he's playing four against it the whole time. And unless you saw the chart, you wouldn't really know it's in three. It's a killer,
and
killer.
Gary is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
guy, he is so amazing. I love his playing. We have an Odd Dogs tune. Odd Dogs was my band, but we have a tune where I took the quintuplet and I phrased it in groups of four.
Okay.
So it feels almost like a shuffly kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ralph's playing actually, I think, God, I can't remember now. I think the feel is in four. I think it's in four. And
Okay.
I'm the quintuplet phrased in groups of four, and it ends up coming around, but it's a kind of a weird feel.
So how does this displace like where you would put the downbeat for a harmon, like a harmony shift? Then, if a chord is falling on a downbeat, but you're playing one note after a group of sixteenths.
That's a little bit where the math comes in.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to, and the my co-writer Jeff Miley, who's
Hmm.
just an insane guitar player.
Yeah.
When we wrote this stuff, it was like we would just sit down, and again, we tried to make it as organic as possible, and we did. But there were occasional times where we'd say, "Hey, let's try to work this out," and he would count like, "Okay, well, the chord's going to change here, so it's on your fourth note or your fifth note."
Right.
Right? So then the mechanics would come in a little bit,
Okay.
but it still was organic. It still was like, and the greatest compliments I got from that music was from Andy, the sax player's wife. Uh, she said it just doesn't sound complicated to me. It
Right.
sounds like melodic music, you know. And I was like, wow, okay. So that's what I want to achieve, right?
Sure.
You know, so that it's not because I hear all this stuff about math rock and all this other stuff, and yeah, there's some complexities to it, but this is the music I hear,
Yeah.
so it's not like we're trying to make it hard, but yeah, to answer your question, there is a little bit of thinking that has to go in there to make things fit when you're dealing with these odd groupings and these different
Sure.
things. But the great thing about that particular band, the Odd Dogs, is that everybody was on the same page.
Right.
Everybody loved that kind of music. So it wasn't a chore. It was like, when Ralph came in with his drum parts and orchestrated his drum parts, it was like, it was so beautiful because he had his own approach to it
Right.
and it had a completely different light to the music. It was awesome.
Yeah. That's killer. Um, Speaking of Odd Dogs, you were also a part of a group. We're going to get to Odd Dogs also because I want to know about that, and um, I do want to know about. Unfortunately, Ralph passed away. Ralph Humphreys passed away about a year and a half ago. I don't want to really misquote that, but it was around that. Um, and obviously, you guys must have been close, and I'm sorry for your loss. I never got the chance to meet him, but everybody who I hear speak of him is such high regard all the time, and I'm bummed I never got a chance to meet him.
Yeah. My life was changed for the good.
Yeah, by knowing him, that's amazing, and I think that that's a beautiful sentiment and impact that he had on you as a person and as a musician.
Okay.
But you also had a group called Continuum prior to Odd Dogs. Was this a group that you kind of led or spearheaded, or was it another kind of collective thing with like-minded musicians and you guys were just hashing it out?
Um, it was the drummer's band, which I met, I think, I don't remember, but we met a long time ago. But so it was pretty much his band, but the band itself was sort of like not really one person was leading it.
Okay.
So we all had input, we all wrote music. And what was interesting about that band is that we rehearsed twice a week.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it
That's
was
that's unheard of for uh like
crazy.
a band of pros that's not through the union. Like to get a group of pros together twice a week for a rehearsal, that's insane.
And it was a work of love because
Yeah.
we obviously didn't get paid a lot, but we ended up doing 3 records that I'm really proud of. And the cool thing about that band is nothing was off the table.
Okay.
It wasn't like, oh no, we do this kind of music, so we can't do that.
Right.
So we did music from the great John Bergamo. I don't know if you know
Oh
who he is.
no, I'm not
Great
here.
tabla player. He
Okay.
taught at Cal Arts. He was the head of I think Randy took his place, Randy
I see.
Gloss took his place. But he wrote a lot of really great music. Yeah, again, South Indian based music.
Hmm.
Did his music, some of his, and then we all wrote. So
Okay.
that was one of the first, not the first place, but one of the first places where I really started getting into composition and
Hmm.
writing music, which was nice.
Okay, and you got into it right kind of on that level of writing odd meter tunes and writing
Yeah,
polyrhythms and
pretty much.
okay.
Yeah, it was, and some of my music, it's weird. Some of the music is a little more melodic. Like some of the stuff, even though like I keep going back to it, sorry, but um, some of it is like even though it's really complex, the melodies are really
Sure.
I have strong melodies. So it's not just like rhythmic stuff going on in weird time signatures. It's like melodies happening throughout the music as well. So melody is a big part of what I like to do when I write too.
Who have been some of your melodic influences?
Well, mostly it's been horn players and
Okay.
vocal. They're obviously the bass players that we all know. They have been great influences as well.
Sure.
Um, but I liked Coltrane. I liked Miles.
Hmm.
Thelonious Monk was a hero of mine. Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald. I mean, it just, but I got a lot because out of those guys because they had to breathe.
Right. Right.
You
Yeah, I
know,
guess I guess that was kind of my question that I could have asked better is like when you conceive of something that has a really strong melody, you're it sounds like you're conceiving of it as a vocal phrase that's performed instrumentally.
I think so.
And so then you kind of pull from your bag of tricks
Yeah,
of vocalists.
yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, like any string instrument musician, I don't always follow that path as
Hmm.
much as I'd like to. I play too much, but it's in there, you know what I
Right.
mean? And especially when I'm writing, melody to me is king.
Yeah.
Love harmony, and obviously I love rhythm, but melody is king.
Hmm.
So even in my solos, I try to make it so that you can sing at least part of it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Sections where you can sing, there's something that will grab the listener, something melodic.
Hmm.
Then I can go off and do other faster and weird polyrhythms or whatever. But I want to make sure that I'm being melodic when I play or when I write. And
Hmm.
again, I don't always succeed, but that's my goal.
It's is I talk to students a lot about phrasing and the characteristics of creating phrases and let's take the use of repetition, to like let's say you repeat something and then the third time you resolve it in a different way to give everything a sense of continuity. How does that specifically that one actually why not specifically the concept of repetition when you're dealing with odd meter and polyrhythms all the time, does that throw a wrench in some of these more standardized approaches to phrasing?
Well, phrasing, good question. I mean, phrasing is different in odd meter.
Hmm.
So what I do, just personally, I I'm not a real math whiz in my brain, right? There are some people like Jeff is that way, Jeff Miley. Like
Yeah.
he's incredible. He'll think of things and he'll figure it out. 'Cause I'll have to turn to him because I'm like, Jeff, I can't figure this out mathematically, and he'll do it. But for me, what I do is I set up a loop. That's what I did. And then I would practice my phrasing in 7 or 5 or whatever that loop produced.
Hmm.
And in my book, or it's not in the first book, but in one of my rhythm study books, um, I have grooves that I've set up where I can put that recording on, and then I have phrases like let's say it's in three. I'll have phrases where of two beats
Right.
that it'll resolve after this many,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Right.
bars or
So then are
whatever.
you mathematically like to use
That
that
way,
and
yeah.
we might lose the listeners who are
All right.
trying to think through this in real time. Um, so if you have phrases in two beats then and you're in three, are you breaking up the dotted quarter into dotted sixteenths? Are you
Yeah,
doing
I
it
might.
that structured or are you doing some over the bar line groups of two?
Yeah, it's over the bar line.
Oh, so like half notes in three that
Or
would
like one, two, and three. So one, two, and one, two, and one,
okay.
two. It's in a bar of three.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then
Mhm.
after so many bars, that's going to resolve. And what I'll do is, again, I'll practice the one I wrote. And as I get comfortable with hearing that, because to me, it's all about hearing the resolution.
Sure.
You have to hear where it resolves.
Right.
And when it's going through that motion, that's where the tension is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we have harmonic tension.
Sure.
Play altered chords, you play the altered scale. That's extreme tension on a harmonic level. But this is rhythmic tension, right? So those kind of phrases then you can come up with. And then what I do is after I've played the written phrase, then I'll start improvising using that same concept.
Mm-hmm.
Again, what I'm doing is it's becoming part of my DNA.
Yeah.
So now I can play in seven and I don't I know that it's eventually, even if I get lost for a minute, eventually I know where it's going to come around
Right.
because I just train myself to be able to hear that.
Now, do you actually think about that? Like, okay, I know in three measures of seven that this polyrhythm will work out, or do you just feel the phrases? Because it
And
sounds to me like it's so internal. You're just feeling like I know it'll work out there. You know, like no one counts their way through a blues after a certain point. You just know where 12 bars is,
exactly.
and so for you, these polyrhythms in time signatures and stuff like that, you just know where it's at, and that's where one is.
Yeah, I mean, in one of my videos that I've been doing for my education site, I've talked about it in that um, what I like to do is in my practice time, I do more of the like left brain stuff.
Hmm.
So in my practice time, I'm going to do that mechanical thing.
Sure.
Okay, I want to play in this time signature. I want to play over the bar line. So here's what I'm going to play, and I practice it. When I'm playing, I'm not thinking that way.
Right. It's
I'm
just in there and
I'm
it
letting
comes out. Yeah.
the motor is just running. I'm listening. I'm responding, and it's in my DNA. So I know somewhere it's going to come out.
Right.
And when I'm doing it, I have no idea what I'm doing. It's just coming out, but I can hear where it's supposed to come back.
Sure. Sure. Well, actually, these books you've written, are they published? Are they just self-published? Are they out into the world?
They're self-published right now. I have them on my website.
Okay.
And right now, the cool thing that I'm so grateful for about the school is I was able to write a lot of curriculum,
Hmm.
which I'm so grateful for that because I did a jazz history, online jazz history course. And so
Was that specific to the bass, or was that just jazz as a genre?
everybody, yeah. So
Okay.
it's for all students. And I did two rhythm study books. I did really five quarters of jazz, but we only did four. So anyway, I have a lot of material, but I wrote a lot of stuff that I hadn't finished too. So after I was not at the school any longer, I realized I had all this material.
Right.
Some of it's not finished. So I've been working hard to try to finish everything. But right now what I have is I have a technique book and I also have the first rhythm studies book I have
Okay.
done. And it's up on my website. It's in the shop, so people can purchase it if they want. Um, but yeah, it's basically what I was teaching, at least for the rhythm studies book. It was basically what I was teaching in the course at school.
The technique book you just spoke of, is that a kind of electric bass 101 technique book, or is that dealing with six string or advanced harmonic concepts, or what's in the technique book?
Well, what I like to do is apply more than one thing to what I'm learning.
Yeah, agreed.
So for me, um, well, let me start over for a second. So the way the book works is it's a warm-up book in the beginning.
Hmm.
So it just has exercises to warm your hands up. Okay. And then about halfway through, it gets into hardcore technique.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say it's a beginning book.
Okay.
Maybe an intermediate. Definitely, there's some more advanced stuff in there.
So the student coming to this book for the first time, sorry to interrupt, but the
Oh,
student coming to this book for the first time has an understanding of basic technique, holding the bass,
yeah,
left hand thumb position, the shape of the hand.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. There's already a working knowledge of the instrument before they
yeah.
move into this.
It's for people that have played a little while and have some sort of, some sort of ability, ability at
Hmm.
the instrument. Because I think the beginning portion would be okay probably for everybody, but I wouldn't feel right
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the book would,
Right.
not.
Alienate them after a certain point. Yeah.
It's not. That's not fair.
Sure.
Um, and it's working on both your right hand and your
Mhm.
left hand.
We'll be back right after this.
Right, folks, I keep talking about it. The middle of the show is for you. Get featured on the Bass Shed podcast. Whatever your news is, you got a new album out, you got some tour dates coming up, you want to plug your social media handles, your website, your lessons platform, whatever it might be. Hit me up and get featured on the Bass Shed podcast. There's a link in the show notes. Now, until someone hits me up to get featured, I'm going to keep featuring my own book. That's right. The only way for me to shut up about this book is for you to tell me what you're up to so I can talk about your news. Other than that, I'm just going to keep talking about my own news. Jerry Jamont, 15 Timeless Bass Lines. Stop by and check it out at thebassshedacademy.org. The transcription book is available, and any level of bass player can learn from this book. There's more simple lines in there, and then there's some serious advanced stuff in there. Some free time things. Jerry Jamont's bass solos are in there. There's a lot of information in it. Jerry Jamont, 15 Timeless Bass Lines. Stop by thebassshedacademy.org.
Excellent, sir.
When I had Mark Egan on the show, Mark and I can't remember if it's part of the episode or if we talked, the conversation went on after the episode, but we talked a lot about that, about just like how there's not enough information out there for the electric bassist on the right hand. There's so book after book after book of understanding your fretboard and scale patterns and shapes and now chords and being at the NAMM show, they're making basses with chords in mind. It's the left hand thing's getting a little nuts, but the right hand thing I don't think is really gets the attention it should. And to circle back to Gary Willis, he made a study out of his right hand technique, which I think is beautiful, and he really created a whole generation of people really starting to give the right hand a little bit more attention. Well, him and Wooten, because of
Yeah,
the things Wooten was doing. But
yeah,
I'm glad that you're
yeah,
talking about that your book is aimed at all aspects of it, and because the right hand is so easily overlooked.
right. Well, going back to one of the things I said was in that video is that, again, just focusing on the right and the left.
Hmm.
For me, it's like when I'm in practice, I want to focus on the left. I tell my students it's like the weight room.
Yeah,
If you play football, the weight room is not playing football, but you do the weight room to prepare to play the game better.
sure, that's right.
That's what I want to do on my left side. When I'm in I want all this stuff. I want my right hand, my left. I don't want anything to stop me
Sure,
from being able to have that right brain just be creative.
yeah.
I'm always focusing on those things.
Hmm.
And going back to what I was saying before, in terms of I like to include more than one thing when I'm practicing. So in the book, there's a lot of polyrhythmic kind of stuff in the book, as well as technique, as well as, like I'll do patterns in the circle.
Hmm.
So all of this stuff is reinforcing the music education that we need as musicians. Okay, I'm going to play this arpeggio in the circle. Okay, well, what's the circle? How does that work?
Hmm.
Or I'm going to play this in a, 4/3 groove. Okay, how does that work with the click?
Right.
You're kind of getting a little bit of, multiple things in the one thing you're doing. It's also strengthening your hands.
Sure.
So,
I do want to talk about, and you referenced it a second ago, your education platform that you have now, which is called Master Music Now.
yes.
Um, so a lot of these, to dive into it, a lot of the courses you had written for Los Angeles College of Music are up or will be up on your new
Yeah.
platform. Um, what was the inspiration for getting into the online world?
Oh, great question. It's one of those times when your life shifts a little bit
Hmm.
and something new on the horizon, and it's a little bit scary and uncomfortable, but
Sure.
it's really good.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So so that's kind of where I found myself.
Okay.
Um, I am passionate about teaching. I absolutely love teaching, almost maybe equal to playing. I just love teaching. I
Depending
all
on the student and depending on the gig, I'd agree with you.
Yeah, no, there's some truth to that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with that. But the concept of educating people in music really turns me on. It's
sure.
it's really a powerful thing. I have 26 years of experience teaching. I've had the pleasure to teach, I don't know, thousands of students. And I wanted to take that to a place where I could still share that with people
Yeah.
because I'm passionate about it and I want to help people be all they can be as musicians,
Hmm.
even if they're not going to be professional. I mean, I've
Yeah.
taught people that aren't professional. I still teach people that aren't professional, but it teaches them so much about life and success and it gives them, confidence and enjoyment, even if somebody's just going to play for their spouse or something
I
guitar.
completely agree. I was doing a Zoom lesson here at the studio earlier today, and uh, the student, it, self-admittedly, he's like, "I don't want to be in a band. I don't want to play out. I don't want to. This is something I like to do for me. I'm just interested, and I have fun doing it."
Yeah,
Great, great. If that's what music is for you, then great, great. Like,
awesome.
there's no need to be a professional. Uh, don't don't do it. I mean, for so many reasons, don't do it. But whatever keeps you excited about this thing, yeah, let's just do that. Let's just do that because that's what it should be. It should be fun. It should be a release, maybe an escape, something to get into some places mentally and emotionally that you don't in your day to day life. Uh, and if that's what the base is, and I can show you a couple things to help you on that pursuit, great.
Awesome.
I mean,
That's
that's so I agree with you that when it comes to teaching, it's not just about, I mean, it is, there's mechanics involved, but there's a lot more that goes into talking about music and talking about music to someone else, that it's way deeper than just the mechanics.
right.
And that's what excites me.
And it challenges me as a teacher
Hmm.
because, you can't teach one student the same as another.
Right.
I mean, there's concepts you can, but you have to approach it in a different way.
Sure.
And that's a really great challenge, and I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, in that sense, I mean, it's very much like improvising. Like it's
Sure.
like well, okay, I know we're dealing with this tune and we're dealing with that chords, but now I'm playing with these cats, and how's it going to go down? You
Yeah.
know, uh, there's a little bit of being on that edge that I like of teaching.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
It's the
like to
same
learn.
payoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good to grow as a teacher, and sometimes I learn more from my students than
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I know.
so it's good to have that. But I guess for me it's to leave a legacy of music.
Hmm.
I'm getting at an age now where I'm getting up there, and it's like I've had a lifetime of experience. I've traveled the world. I've played with some great musicians, and I say that in a humble way and honored that happened to me. And I've taught for a very long time, and I want to give it to people. I want them to be blessed by it, you know?
Hmm.
And so that was my goal in just starting this. It's like, you know, I got to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure you've had that feeling of like, this is it. This is what's before me. I got to do it and just see what happens, you
I mean,
know?
I feel like we've all the professionals have all probably had that moment where I got to do this. I don't know what getting into becoming a musician as a professional is like. I don't know how this is going to shake down. I don't know kind of what scene I'm going to fall into. Am I going to be a studio guy? Am I a road guy? Am I, I don't know where this journey is going to take me, but I got to do this. And you're in, and that's
And,
you see what happens.
and God's never let me down. I'm
That's
still
right.
here.
Right, right.
It's
Absolutely.
exciting. Like, okay, well, what's coming? Well, we'll see.
Yeah, right, right. That's absolutely true. Um, so to circle back to the music, master music now, is do you is this going to be available for kind of all levels? Or are you similar to your book where there's already an understanding of bass mechanics, and because it takes a lot of time and energy and resources to do these videos, like there's a component that I do to all this that's educational, and it's a lot. It's way more than if people watch a 15-minute video, like that probably took 3 days.
Yeah.
With the getting the sound right and getting any kind of lighting right, then editing the thing and putting it's a lot. It's a lot of work. So for people that don't maybe want to do all levels, just shooting a course on one octave major scales might not be worth it. I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, great question. So yes, it does take a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have to say I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a closet filmmaker,
Hmm.
and so to do all the editing and sort of all that stuff is fun, but it does take massive amount of time. But I'm starting off slow. I'm just doing one video a week right now. I have
Okay.
about 30 videos, 30 plus videos.
Oh, great.
So I'm going to make more. I'm going to, try to stay ahead of it.
Sure.
So eventually I'm hoping it's going to be a school
Yeah.
in terms of like, I mean, I have different subjects I'm going to teach. I haven't started yet, but I'm going to do harmony and theory. So I'm going to start at the very beginning and go very complex.
Hmm.
At the school, I taught harmony theory 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm basically going to bring that to the online, platform.
I remember to circle back to Los Angeles College of Music, I was talking with the guitar player who now teaches theory, Ken Song.
Okay.
And I was asking, and I play a lot with Ken actually, and uh, I was asking him like, well, where does this school cap out? Like how far do they go into theory? And I know if you go to a college, the theory classes start with, I don't know if they start with, but you'll get into 4-part writing, and then towards the end you'll get into serial music and tone rows and
Yeah.
20th century stuff. I didn't anticipate that Los Angeles College of Music was going to go there because it's really not kind of coming from the classical.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not informed by European classical music. It's informed by something else. Uh, so in your courses, where do you stop with the theory? And is it aimed at the jazz theory, or is it just general music theory, part writing, songwriting? Because I feel like there's, even though it's all just still rhythm and harmony, there's a lot of different approaches you could take.
Yeah, I think it's more contemporary.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to get into like the classical kind of theories. So it's more contemporary, maybe more pop to jazz.
Hmm.
So maybe those theory, it'll start like basic, like every, theory course is going to start.
Right.
And part of that is going to be ear training. So getting people's ears really in tune is important. But again, it's going to be mostly pop to jazz kind of theory, more contemporary
Hmm.
theory as opposed to classical.
Now, I'm glad that you brought up ear training because I feel like so many bass players that get into playing a fretted instrument, you tune the bass once, you're done with it, you don't think about it. Like, are you in tune? I don't know. Let me check my little Korg tuner. Like, you're not you're not really using your ears to fine tune every pitch like an upright player would or a fretless player would.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and so with that, you don't think, I've at least me coming up, I didn't think about intervals when I was playing. I was just playing, and that's what it is. How do you teach ear training? Uh, Not for the bassist, but with that in mind, that most bass players are playing a fretted instrument that don't really think about these things.
Yeah, and I think ear training is one of the most important things,
Hmm.
and I got to say, my ears are a lot better now, but they were weak when I was playing as a younger player. I just have to say they were weak. That was probably the weakest thing on me, but I've worked at it and it's gotten better, way better. But for me, the biggest thing is solfege.
Mm, okay.
So, so if you can sing it, you can
Yeah.
hear it. If
Mm,
you can't sing it, you can't hear it.
right.
So for me, solfege was a game changer, and I actually taught the vocal at the school. I taught the vocal sight singing class.
Oh wow. Okay.
That for a long time. I don't know how many years that was, 10 years or 12 years. But that was huge for me.
Yeah.
Because again, if you can sing it, you're going to be able to hear the interval. If you can't sing it, then you can't hear it.
Right.
So, and the other thing, which I don't say from experience, because this, you know, sorry to admit this, but it's like pulling teeth with me to transcribe.
Okay.
I'm not a good transcriber. My friend Andy Suzuki, man, he was transcribing when he was a kid, and that guy can transcribe anything.
Yeah.
But it is one of the best things you can do for your ear is
I
trans.
100% agree with that. Yeah. I'm big into transcribing. I
Yeah,
actually love
I
doing it.
admire that. I admire.
And that's although like I went through all the curriculum in music college to do the sight singing. We had a book and we did all the, this one's Star Wars and that's, you do all
Yeah,
the little pitch recognition things. My Bonnie went over the ocean.
right, right.
Um, but yeah, transcribing because for me there was now a connection to the instrument.
Yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
now what I hear, my hands will follow it. Whereas
Totally
if
true.
my voice follows what I'm singing, for some reason, it wasn't the same as my hands
Yeah,
following.
that totally makes sense. And if you're doing like as a bass player or a guitar player or whatever, if you're transcribing solos, then you're learning vocabulary,
Mhm.
which is great too.
Yeah.
I have a guitar student and he's learning jazz, and with him, he's transcribing a lot. And he'll come in the lesson and he'll first play the transcribed solo and then he'll solo himself.
Oh,
And
great.
he's doing a really great job. And I didn't even have to push him to do it. It's just something he wants to do.
That's awesome.
And he's learning vocabulary. So he's playing Chet Baker stuff on this tune. And it's just like, that's incredible, man.
Yeah.
Now make it your own.
Yeah.
Try to take that idea and just make it a little bit different.
Did this student specifically seek out the transcription of Chet Baker to transcribe, or was that something you're like, yeah, check out Chet on this tune?
No, well, he likes Chet Baker.
Okay.
Which so do I. I mean, I
Yeah. Yeah.
love it. But and Chet's a little bit, it's not like, giving somebody a Coltrane CD and saying, here, transcribe, my
Yeah.
favorite.
Chet Baker's a little bit more digestible, you know?
It's more melodic,
Yeah.
right? But it's brilliant phrasing, the notes he chooses. It's very melodic. There's a
Sure.
lot of motivic stuff in it.
Hmm.
So he's learning vocabulary by transcribing
Sure.
too. And
Right.
he's also developing his ear. So I totally agree with you. I think it's an important thing to do, even though I'm the teacher saying you need to do it.
My favorite part about transcribing is what you end up finding out that all these legendary players did. It doesn't fall in line with the rules that are dictated by books or sometimes curriculums or whatever. Like when you see what they actually did, and you're like, really? Like, huh? That's that's not at all how I would have been taught to do this by
Right,
some jazz improv book or something.
right.
So
And some of them,
it's like a look behind the curtain a little bit that
right,
I find has been more empowering
yeah,
than going through method books and things like that.
learning the rules and then breaking them.
Yeah. Yeah,
But then
I just learned how to break them. That's
some of the curriculum though was built off of those ideas that you're talking about,
sure.
like the bebop scale, right?
Right.
I mean, things like that, it's like they had to come up with explanation. But because I did a lot, I didn't transcribe, but I did a lot with the Charlie Parker Omnibook. I
Hmm.
spent a lot of time with that. And you'll see it in solos, you're going to see certain things that he repeats,
Right.
like the flat, the flat 9 to 3 kind of thing. And the bebop scale, you'll hear those things as they play them. And so people are just like, because back in those days, there was no college to go study jazz.
Right.
It didn't exist. So now they've researched that stuff and now they write books on the bebop scale and flat 9, third kind of concepts and all that stuff. But they were doing it they were creating it.
Yeah, they were creating it, and where I for what was it? What was the composer that Bird was into? Was it Hindermuth?
Oh, no. Well, was it Stravinsky?
There was one, and I'm blanking on who it was, but
No, I'm blanking too.
but yeah, but it's what he got off those records, and
I,
then it went through the Charlie Parker filter, and it came out as this.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
I mean, all that stuff was kind of done before with Bach or whoever. I mean,
mhm.
the harmony's in there, the
Right,
concept.
right. Yeah. Okay, so we got the technique book, the rhythm studies book. What else can people look forward to come to see on your platform?
Well, I have Rhythm Study Book 2, which is getting into T highs and different things. So again, these are sort of Indian concepts. I have to finish that. I have a sort of an intermediate reading book
Okay.
that I'm going to do. I have a rhythm book that starts at the beginning and goes pretty far. So to go back to your point about the platform, um, it's going to be for everybody.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't have a lot of videos up yet,
Sure.
I would just ask people be patient because I'm working on them. But basically, it's going to be for songwriters. It's going to be for all musicians in terms of if they want to learn how to read rhythms or they want theory. It's going to be for bass players specifically. Some of my rhythm study stuff. It's also going to be soloing. I'm going to do a bunch of videos on soloing,
Hmm.
and probably soloing in odd times because that's kind of what I do. And it'll be even beginning guitar courses I'm going to have on there.
Okay.
So it's going to be a whole array of different educational opportunities for people to take advantage of and to use to learn.
That's great. That's great. Um, I know I've talked to other bass players about this kind of like off record, off the podcast. But bass players who they can play and they're recognized internationally is like, yeah, they can play. Um, the odd meter soloing and to really be able to free that up to not play 7 7 7 7 7. If you're playing in 7. Um, I should have prefaced it with that. Yeah, but not just like locked into bar and like, okay, I'm going to do this thing in that bar, and then, but to really have the play these longer phrases and really still tell the story,
Right.
even though it's in an odd meter with interesting aspects, and that's a challenge, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, I
Is
think so. Yeah, I think so. Anybody can do it.
sure,
It's repetition. It's learning the phrasing. It's like when you first learn jazz phrasing, right?
right,
It's it's what's a swing feel? How am I supposed to all that stuff is foreign. And it's like I remember when I first drove my car, on the
right, right.
freeway,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it felt like I was on, speedway. I'm like, this is too fast. But after a few years, you're like
yeah,
looking at people,
yeah, yeah, right.
so
Right,
it's
you're
the
kind of
same.
driving with the leg and like unwrapping a cheeseburger over here, and yeah,
Yeah, you're eating while you're,
yeah, right, yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you should eat a burger while you're playing in seven.
No.
That's not, but, but the idea
Hey,
is that,
shoot that course. Let's shoot that course.
the idea is that for me, I set up a groove and then at first I would just play
Yeah.
and, and I'd fall on my face and, oh, I'm lost. Where am I? But then after a while, you just start feeling where those phrases end.
Hmm.
Now, that's maybe not for everybody. Maybe for some people, they need to have a little bit more of the technical mechanical part of it, which is fine, then you pick a grouping, just pick a grouping and practice with that. Taki ti taki. Let's see. Taka taka taki ti taka taka taki ti taka taka. Okay, build your idea off that.
Hmm.
Bum, 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 bum. You know what I mean? And you can create lines just using that. And again, it's very mechanical. Sorry for my stumbling and clapping, but it's very mechanical, but you're not always going to play that way. You're going to
Sure.
start getting the feel of that subdivision. I remember, Don Ellis originally talked about it, but and what did they call it? Oh man, I wish I could remember. I wish I could do Don Ellis. I don't mean to misquote him. I can't remember the name of it. Rhythmic cell, that's it.
Okay.
And Ralph preached that a lot too. It's like instead of going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? You break it up into groups of twos and threes.
Hmm.
That's what odd
Yeah,
time means.
it's all just different
Right,
amalgamations of twos and threes,
right,
right?
right. So instead of, counting it, you just feel that
Right.
or right? You just feel that cell. And if you do it enough, there's a point where you can feel the cell while you're playing,
Sure.
even if you're not playing in the cell, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're
You
still
know,
feeling, if it were in four, you're still feeling the quarter note, even though
yeah, yeah,
you're still feeling the pulse of
exactly right.
yeah.
So, but again, that takes practice.
Hmm.
But it's like anything. It's just I just don't think we play in odd times that much, and that's okay.
Sure.
I mean, I don't play in odd times because it's hard. I play in it because that's what I hear,
Yeah, right, right,
feel. And I've just gotten better over the years doing it because I do it a lot. But
right.
in no sense am I perfect in it. I still get lost. There are times where I'm upside down but that's part of the fun. It's like,
Sure.
okay, let me get back and okay, I'm okay.
Yeah,
There I am.
yeah, yeah, right, right.
Get a
Um,
little dirty, but that's okay.
no, I think it's great you use those analogies of driving a car or doing anything through repetition. Um, a phrase I tell students is like nothing's difficult, it's just unlearned. You
Yes.
just haven't learned it yet. It's not hard because at one point you didn't know how to hold the bass, and now we're already here. So all you did was learn it. So all we have to do is learn it. Nothing's difficult. All you got to do is learn it.
Right.
And I think specifically with Odd Meter, and it's great that you're doing this platform and have done these books because there's a lot of times people don't know where to go. Well,
Mm,
cool. I'm into it. I want to get more into it. What records should I check out? Or like, what's a cool book? Like, okay, here's a book, but I don't know. That doesn't. How do I adapt this as a bass player?
mm.
I have books by guitar players. I have books by drummers. I have fun adapting books to the bass thing. I've adapted classical technique things to the electric bass. Like that's fun for me. It's like writing an arrangement, so to speak.
Yeah,
It's but there's a lot of people that don't maybe have the time or maybe they're
right,
just overwhelmed by it all to begin with, and they just let's break this down into more chewable bites.
right. And again, I'm not saying that there isn't material out there, but I haven't found it
Mhm.
applied to the bass. That's
Sure.
why I thought it was so interesting because it's like taking those Indian concepts and actually applying the rhythms to notes
Yeah.
to the actual instrument. So they're slapping examples, So and there's soloing examples of using the stuff. And again, when you first start doing it, just read what's there,
Right.
right? And then just go off on that and start creating your own stuff and start messing with those polyrhythms or whatever it is that we're doing
Sure.
and create your own stuff. Because that's what we want to do as musicians. We want to be creative,
Yeah.
right? And to me, it's just another way of being creative. It's just a little bit more sophisticated rhythmically. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's no. I mean, yeah, I feel like it's no different than. I mean, it's superimposition, right? So if you're going to superimpose chords to
yeah,
really create
yeah,
another layer harmonically, or add tension, or
exactly.
add some different colors, you're just superimposing a different rhythm. It's the
Right.
same thing as quote unquote playing out, or
Yeah.
if you've for those that have gone through the Coltrane cycle, like and you're gonna apply that over one chord. It's the same thing.
Right,
I
right.
feel like it's chords. You're looking at the chord, and so when you look at, let's say, giant steps, for instance, like, okay, I'm moving with these scales at this set time. Polyrhythms. It's not as black and white, literally, on the chart of what you're doing,
Right.
or how to navigate it. It's like you've been saying, it just has to be in your DNA. And I think that phrasing it that way is a great way of phrasing it.
It has to be
Yeah,
for it to come out naturally because it's too hard to try to think while you're playing like groupings and different things.
right.
It's to be in there, and plus it doesn't come out. If you could do it, it comes out too mechanical.
Sure.
It has to be natural. It has to be part of your vocabulary, part of your language, right?
Yeah,
It's like learning words, If you're learning sophisticated words, you might have to shove them in there,
yeah,
for a couple months. You might have to purposely like put it in there, but hopefully eventually what's going to happen is then they start becoming part of you,
sure.
And that's what's going to happen with the rhythms as well.
Right.
So, and I would say too, if you are interested in that, you know, listen to music that has that in it.
I was
Modern.
gonna ask, what are some recommendations? What are some records that you would drive students to, like, check this stuff out, check out these bass players, check out these guitar players, check out just what this group is doing, check out what this tabla player is doing. What are some recorded examples of where you would drive traffic?
Well, I mean, definitely McLaughlin, John McLaughlin, and he's a guitar player, but he has different genres, or not genres, but different eras of music. So he's got things that are more traditional with tabla players, but then he's got Mahavishnu Orchestra, which is a full-on fusion band back in the 70s.
Hmm.
So he's someone that's good. Trilok Gertrude, who's a percussionist, drummer. He's in Europe. My friend Andy played with him, and his stuff's pretty great. The Odd Dogs album,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
want
we
to,
haven't. I've been
I
meaning
don't
to
want to
come
be
back to that. Yeah,
self-promoting here, but there's a lot of uh, I mean, going back to what I said before, uh, I like to combine things. So the thing that was, again, what was great about the band is that we all were educators.
yeah,
So everything that I wrote in the rhythm studies book, or not everything, sorry, I'm exaggerating. A lot of the stuff that I wrote in the rhythm studies books, we applied to the music that we wrote.
but yeah,
So there's metric modulations in it. There's odd time stuff, obviously. I think there were a couple times we were in 4/4, but it was mostly
yeah,
odd time stuff. So I like to apply not the concepts not only as exercises but to music, and so I
sure.
did record. So that I mean I'd recommend that one. Um, you know the classic if you're into rock, all the classic rock stuff like Rush, Yes, King Crimson, bands like that that deal a lot. I think even I'm not sorry, I'm showing my age here, but I think even Tool,
Hmm.
deal with a lot of odd
Sure.
time stuff, and they make it natural and they make it musical. And
One
so,
of one of my check-ins for it is Sting.
oh,
Sting will always have some,
yes,
10 Summoner's Tales. I think there's two tunes in seven, a tune in five. Brand New Day, there's a bossa in nine. Like,
yeah,
and it's
natural.
all really strongly melodic, and you don't know it's in nine until you're like, wait a minute,
Yeah, that's a great
nine.
suggestion. Yeah, yeah, and that's in the pop world, right? I mean,
Yeah,
he's a little more sophisticated, but still, that's in the pop world, so it's there.
yeah.
You know, and thank you, Ron, because you gave me a great idea for another video, and that's on the because with my mind there's other people I can't think of, but there's tons of people that I could recommend. I just can't think of them right now.
Yeah.
But I'll do a video with record also with books because there's a bunch of books that I've worked through, drum books that I worked
Mm.
through great that helped me in these concepts as well.
Yeah, I bet that's a great resource.
Yeah.
Wrapping up, let's touch on the Odd Dogs. This is your latest project. Um, you have a record out with them.
Yes.
Is the record on all the places
It
records
is.
go?
Yeah, it's Spotify. It's all over, so you can check it out. I have it on my website too.
Okay.
Um, And on my website, I have my solo record, which was Odd Times for an Odd World, which I
Hmm.
did, I think, in 2012. I think it was 2012.
Who was the sax player on that?
That was Andy.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
And
I mean, the whole group sounds great. But
he
the
gets
sax,
so tired. He gets so tired, I'm sure, of me talking about him, but he's just so brilliant. He's
yeah.
so incredible. And that's why I had him in the Odd Dogs because, and he also plays keys. So in the band, he plays keys and saxophone. He's a really good saxophone player. I mean, keyboard player as well. Yeah, sorry, what was the question?
Oh, you have one record out with him. The record with Odd Dogs is on all the places. We did talk about it. Unfortunately, we lost Ralph Humphreys. Is the band moving forward and with a different personnel?
Right now, it's kind of a little bit on pause.
Sure.
Ralph was a huge part of the band, but Jeff and I, we've been writing.
Great.
It's just taking a little bit more time.
Yeah.
Jeff, as you know, is the head of the department now, guitar department. So he's got a lot of stuff on his plate.
Sure.
So, but I do even have somebody who's interested in producing it.
Oh, cool.
And, I don't want to give too much information because I don't know what's going to happen. You just never know. Yeah. So I don't want to, but if we do it, it could be very cool. And we'll see what happens. I'm working also on my own project.
Okay.
So I go in the studio. There's a bunch of tunes I've written that's a little bit different than the Odd Dogs thing.
And what would be the instrumentation of your own project?
What I'm thinking is pretty basic. It would be drums, bass, guitar, keyboards, and then on one or two tunes, tabla.
Okay.
So it's a little bit less hard driving.
Yeah.
A lot of the Odd Dog stuff was fusion, and there was even like a song that was sort of Metallica.
Okay.
That we did on that record that was in 15, and this one's a little bit more ECM-ish.
Okay.
But anyway, so I have that one on my website, and I also have, going back to my record, I have my solo record on there too, which that record actually were the songs that we did in Ralph's class. We played certain songs, and they were all in 4/4, but he put them in 5 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
So there were no recordings of them.
Right. No, I did that class once, and I think it was Sung for Bilbao in 7 that I...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what I did was I was like, let me record these tunes so the students have access to it.
Yeah.
So I recorded that. That was my solo album, 2012. And then I think the Odd Dogs one we did in 2018.
Okay.
So, and hopefully within the next year, I'm going to do the solo record, and hopefully after that, we're going to get another Odd Dogs project or recording going. It's hard to replace Ralph, man. I mean, there's so many great drummers, and I love them all. They're so incredible. But the chemistry that we had because we had worked together for so many years,
for sure,
Jeff, it's just hard.
Yeah.
And it's a big commitment for drummers too, because it's hard music.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. And I mean, we both know a lot of musicians, a lot of drummers, drummers, you know what I meant. I don't want to alienate one from the other. In LA, they can handle the odd meter stuff very comfortably. Like there's a lot of drummers who could do that here, but the chemistry of a group is something special that kind of never really gets replaced.
Yeah, and in fairness too, it's like the guys that I would want to do it are extremely busy.
Sure.
You know, they're incredibly busy. They're doing all sorts of things. So to get that commitment, to ask them to have that commitment is in some ways not even fair.
Yeah. Yeah, without, compensating for rehearsals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It's just not there. It's just not there yet, but it's something I want to keep going.
Man, thanks so much for being on the show, and let me know when the new records are coming out, the solo albums, anything else by the Odd Dogs. Would love to have you back on and talk about it.
Sounds good. Thank
you.
All
right,
Ryan.
Killer, man. Thanks, dude.
Yo, Yo, this is Craig Gash. Subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on the Instagram, the YouTube.
Okay.
Leave us a comment.
All right. That was my talk with Steve Billman. I'm really fascinated about his books. Now, the course, Rhythm Studies, at Los Angeles College of Music, I play in that workshop, right? I'm on the faculty there, and I'm in it, but I'm in the class for drummers. So I play the curriculum that's aimed at the drummers, and I'm in there and I play the tunes with them. And I knew that the class existed for bass players, but I didn't actually know what it was because I'm not in the class. I just perform in the one with drummers, and I know as it relates to drummers over there, it's a very, very extensive program of rhythm studies and how to approach odd meters and polyrhythms and all that stuff. The class I play in is done by Joel Taylor, great drummer Joel Taylor, who actually played on Victor Wooten and Steve Bailey's album Bass Extremes, among countless other records, but that's a bass record he's on. And so it was cool to connect with Steve about the bass curriculum for that course over at the college, and I'm really interested to check out the book. You can get them from his website. Also check out his new platform, Master Music Now. There will be a link in the show notes to his website, and there will be a link in the show notes to his YouTube channel where I know he's releasing videos. So make sure to check all that out. All right, folks. That's about all I got. That's all I got for this one. I will catch you on the next one in a minute.